And greetings and welcome to the QCast. This is season 3, episode 28. And folks, you know it's a big week when you're putting out 2 QCasts in one day. That's a record for the QCast. We talked to Brock Erickson of Nichols earlier today, and I'm really fortunate to have Jason Leone with me, the head coach of the Oswego State Lakers. And Jason, we were talking a little bit about this off the air, but a great time of year, crazy time of year. First of all, let me just check in with you. How the heck are you doing here heading into the sectional round? You got to be fired up.
Very fired up, Bob. Well, first of all, fired up that I was contacted by you because as I mentioned, I watch all of these things. And
Thank you.
a good buddy of mine, Luke Flakertzy, you had on a couple of episodes ago, and I played at the University of Rochester and for a legendary coach, Mike Neer.
Yeah.
And Luke took over for Coach Neer when he retired and has done a great job with the program there, keeping it at a very high level and perennial NCAA tournament team. And it's been awesome to follow our level through your lens. So it's when I got your call that I was going to be on today, I was pretty fired up about it.
I appreciate it. I was looking at the bracket and trying to figure out who the right folks are to talk to, and I quickly thought about like the places I haven't, the places I know the least about. I'm interested in learning about Oswego State, and again, talked to Nichols earlier. Well, let me ask you this, Jason. Your season, I had to go back to my preseason top 25 ballot. I had you guys number 6 in the preseason.
Yes,
I was huge on you guys. And then you had that little bump in the road where I think it was you lost to Nazareth and Brockport close
correct.
to each other, right? And I think I jumped off the bandwagon after that. It seemed like you played kind of okay the next couple games, but then you came back from break and you just started rolling over people. What's your winning streak at? 20 what now?
23.
23 in a row.
Incredible.
I jumped back on the bandwagon later than I should have, but I got back on. So tell me, my first question is, what happened around break time? Like you went to that Utica tournament, I think, and you just started going crazy. So what's happened here?
I honestly, I don't have the full answer to that, but I will say this. For a person that follows our team, typically about 90% of our roster will be traditional high school students.
Right.
But we have had some luck, with transfers, even before the portal got to be, a thing. And this year was no different. We given the team that we had coming back, we had over 90% of our scoring back, and we added 2 pieces: a player who was on a full scholarship at St. Rose College of St. Rose, a Division II school in Albany, and then a junior college transfer, 6'4" guard, lefty shooter. And those guys, and this is very typical of our teams, and if I could fix it, I would do it. But typically in November, if you look at some of our better years, we've had a couple losses, and not necessarily the bad teams, but just we seem to not be clicking, especially offensively early on. And this year was no different. I also think, and I think you've probably seen this with, Illinois Wesleyan, such a great program and a blue blood at our level. When you have these senior, junior laden teams, sometimes the hardest thing to coach with those teams is to keep them engaged at the beginning of the seasons. Because ultimately, like if you're at an Illinois Wesleyan, a Rochester where I went, a lot of times you're typically judged on what happens at the end of the year. And with 18 to 21-year-olds, it's sometimes a challenge to keep them engaged with the whole process of the ups and downs that you have to go through to just qualify to get to that point where you can be judged based on postseason. So this year was no different with that. And look, we talked to the team about it and all that jazz, and it just didn't. We weren't cohesive in the beginning of the year. And I will say this: Nazareth has had our number a little bit, and it's a tough place to play there.
They're good.
We had an opportunity to win the game, and then the same thing with Brockport. They are probably one of our best, if not second best rival in our league, and they have a program that traditionally makes the NCAAs every 2 out of every 4 years, and played them at home. They had a chip on their shoulder. We had a long winning streak, and that they put to an end. And that was that. Now, it's back to your question. We get to, I don't know what's going on, and I'm talking about jumping off the bandwagon. I was about to myself. So we got back from break, and I don't know what happened. It's just we got going, and against good teams. And to your mention, not only were we winning, but we were winning by these abnormally large margins. And we got those transfers comfortable, where they weren't nervous, learning our system, coupled with the returning guys starting to get going a little bit. And here we are, 23 games later.
Wanted to bring up the topic of parity. I'd like to get Coach's take on this. I mean, I believe that this is a season with just the most parity in Division III I can remember. And from your standpoint, you've seen a lot of teams.
Yes.
My take is that, when I watch Oswego State, I can't really tell you who's better between Oswego State and Mary Hardin Baylor or Wheaton or Case Western. It just seems like there's a bunch of really good teams this year. Everyone can play. You've seen a lot of teams. Does that hold true, that there's just so much? It's not like in the 2000s. Remember when Stevens Point was rolling over everyone back to back year? Like it's just different now. And just talk a little bit about that, if you would.
Yeah, for us I'll start with our situation in our region. It's not a big secret. Like, our region, probably out of the 10 regions, is based on NCAA tournament success. And I follow a lot of the stuff and opinions you say on your Twitter account, and I agree with a lot of them. The toughest thing for us, I think we have a really good team that can play with a lot of people, but because we're in a region where typically, other than U of R, we haven't had a lot of advancement in the tournament. You sometimes can get typecast. Well, they're a good team from an average conference, and the team doesn't advance. And it's a very worthy opinion. I got to be honest with you. Until somebody kind of does it, I don't disagree with that. But I think that what's difficult about it is that because a lot of our leagues play 18 games in our league, it's harder to get and guess who those really good teams out of league are going to be to challenge yourself in the non-conference.
Sure.
So what ends up happening is you play in your league, and it's almost like, if you have, like, what I think to be with our team this year is national level talent, you go a couple months where you might develop some bad habits playing against maybe some lesser competition, and then you get to the Sweet 16.
Right. Like
our game against Carroll the other day, the first 8 minutes we had 3 points because we just hadn't seen that length and strength around the basket all season.
Right.
And we got going a little bit and all that stuff. But to your question, I think there is a lot of parity going on. I think there's more full-time jobs, more people that can go out of region and get kids. And recruiting has become such a different dynamic than what it was when I first got into coaching 25 years ago. There's just a lot of different ways to get players and a lot of different coaches that help people. And there's the access we have to a lot of different kids in a lot of different regions is so different. And it's changed and made it to be maybe a little bit where there's not quite as many teams, because great players are going to a was different programs that maybe they wouldn't have. I don't know what you think, but maybe they wouldn't have 10, 15 years.
No, I think of like, I was in school when Denny Bridges was at Illinois Wesleyan. He was still there for many years when I was out of school. And I just think if, like, Denny didn't have a full-time assistant, and he certainly didn't have the internet. And I remember his last recruiting class, he just got in a car and went to Southern Illinois and recruited Laban Cross from McLeansboro and Luke Caston from Hillsboro. And I mean, I have no idea how he did it. And then I think how different the world is today and how small the world is today. Like, if you're like Illinois Wesleyan, sure, why not recruit a kid from Arizona or Dallas? Or it's the world is small and everyone knows everyone, right? And I think that's what you're getting at. And there's more places that are trying to be good at basketball than there were 30 years ago, right?
There's absolutely no question about it. I mean, and what happens is, like in our region, I read one of your things where it's like, there's 69 teams, Division III teams in New York State or something like that, or in the Northeast, okay, compared to 29 in another region of the country. I forget which one. But where that's a challenge, like in our region, Bob, is that there's in our sport, you get one really good player. It's different than baseball and football, right?
Right.
You get the one stud, like in these parts in Syracuse, you get Carmelo Anthony. You're going to be pretty darn good, right?
Right.
But you got 69 schools in this region trying to get these,
Yeah.
top 5 players that are Division III guys in the state of New York. It makes it a little bit more challenging. I think there's so many schools that now have assistants on the road and full-time programs. Where
Right.
even when I first started, some of these smaller schools, like I look at a school like Penn State Harrisburg a couple of years ago, went in and beat Johns Hopkins, who was a
Yeah.
top 10 team in the country.
Yep.
Like, Penn State Harrisburg, when I was at Keystone, the first job I had, they were in our league in a league that wasn't very strong. And then they put some time and effort and resources into their program, and they had a kid that went down there, and I think at 48 or 49 in the
Right.
game. And
Yep.
you're like, how'd that kid end up at Penn State Harrisburg? You know what I mean? That's nothing against their program, but players end up at different places now that are great. And I just think that that's such a different thing than what was going on, when I first started.
Yeah, it is really incredible. I also want to ask you just about like Division III in your part of the country versus others. I've been in this debate before. It's not even a debate because I agree, but every time I make one of my little comments about, so many of the national championships have come from Illinois and Wisconsin versus New York, someone will correctly point out that like it's just different. I feel like in the Midwest, if you're a high school kid in Chicago, you already have a very high opinion of the WIAC and the CCIW, and you believe Division III is a great option because the older guys on your team went there. They're at Augustana and they're at Platteville. Out your way, is the Division III brand, or do you have to kind of start from scratch with kids? Is there a Division III brand? Just what's it like there? I'm just curious about that.
Let's see. That's an awesome question. I'm glad you asked me. Here's what I will say. Okay, like I coached at the Division II level for 4 years at Mercyhurst University as an assistant, and I recruited out in the Midwest all the time. Michigan, Ohio, Indiana, Chicago. So I think that there's a lot of great players that will end up at Division III schools there because of the gap between Division III and the type of Division I schools that are out there. Like in other words, the Division I leagues out there, there's not as many low Division I, low Division II. A challenge like in our region in New York is that we've got non-fully funded Division II schools all over the state of New York. So what I mean by that is the full allotment's 10 scholarships. Some of these schools have 2 and 3 scholarships. They can throw $5,000 at a kid and they beat us on aid and cell level. Okay. You go, like we played out at Augustana, and you bring a recruit to a game there, a big game, and I'm sure Illinois wasn't like that. There's 5,000 people, 3,000 people at every game. We're not, that doesn't happen at a ton of places here. So I think that's a challenge. But we lose kids, to low Division I. There's a lot of low Division I schools here, Division II schools that aren't fully funded that can throw a few $1,000s. You guys probably have more NAI schools, but I think that gap between Division III and low Division I, it's not a huge gap. So those schools will recruit and take a chance on the 6'8", 6'9" kid that I think could potentially, like Illinois Chicago is not taking that kid. He's the Horizon. Well, they're not in the Horizon anymore. The Missouri Valley is such a big gap from Division III. I think that's part of it. I really do. I don't know what you think, but I think that's part of it.
I think that's a good point. I think when you're a top CCIW school, you end up recruiting against the local D2s like Lewis or Quincy or Truman State or whoever. But I guess the good thing for the D3s is academically, typically the CCIW schools are a better fit for the kid than sometimes the D2 is. So you've got this kid with great grades and he's looking for this kind of education.
Right.
And so CCIWs win a lot of Division II recruiting battles over the whole package. You take the basketball part and the academics, and there's a lot of W's there for the D3s in Illinois.
Well, and you agree with this too, Bob. They can't take everybody, right?
Correct.
I mean, like the Division IIs can't take it. There's always so many scholarships. And that level of Division II out there, like that. So when I was at Mercyhurst, we were in the region with Southern Indiana, Kentucky Wesleyan. Those were, Quincy. Those were big
good D2.
So, like, they're not giving out partial scholarships. Those guys, they're full scholarshiping kids. And a lot of Division II schools that are out here, they can package kids and they might not be as strong academically. So what an academic scholarship is at that place, they might get a kid with a 1,000 on the SAT and get
Absolutely.
academic money, throw an extra $3,000 in there and say, okay, what's your package at a SUNY school, or what's your package at Nazareth or whatever? And then they find out what that is, and then they package them in a way where it'll be just enough to lure them to go play. And then obviously they'll sell level. You're a Division II player.
Right.
So that, I think those are some challenges here that we face. And then I don't know how it is out in the Midwest, but prep school has become a very popular option
Yeah.
for student athletes out here. Go to prep school for a year, give you a great chance of going, and getting a scholarship after a year. Or you're in an area of the country in New England where maybe, a Rochester, a NESCAC school will see you play a little bit more. So if you don't get the scholarship, get your SATs up, get your grades up, and maybe you get a chance to get recruited there.
It's fascinating stuff. I really enjoy the understanding the recruiting stuff. I always stay pretty closely connected with our coaching staff on recruiting, just because I find it fascinating. Like who are our top guys and who else is recruiting them? I find that all very interesting. Let me ask you about the weekend you just had, because it was big time, right? First question for you, did you have a feeling that you guys would get to host? I was doing a lot of bracketology stuff, and I had you guys as like a 4 seed, 5 seed, 4 seed. It could have gone either way, I think. You played your way into it at the end. Did you think you were going to host?
I was 50-50 on it. I felt okay about it. Here's what I did think, though, to take it back a week before. I thought we had to win our conference tournament, because I thought if Rochester would have and I don't know the numbers. So I thought if Rochester would have beaten Emory and we would have lost in our league tournament, I think there was a chance that their resume was so strong with the regionally ranked wins in the SOS. I thought there was a chance the national committee could have flipped us, where we were 2 and they were 1.
Right.
And then we definitely wouldn't have hosted. So the first part of that for us was we felt like we needed to win our league tournament, A, because we wanted to win our league tournament, but B, I felt like the margin could have been paper thin between us and Rochester at 1 and 2 in our region. And I didn't think our region was maybe strong enough to get 2 host sites out of our region. It typically isn't.
Right.
But typically the one thing that made me 55% sure we might host is, I think the committees sometimes might look at each region and try to give, if it's close,
I think so,
one team a site. I look back on historical data, and I can't remember a time where the number 1 team in our region hadn't gotten an opportunity to host before.
It's a great point. In Rochester, by losing that Emory game, they were barely getting in on the bubble, and so you were safe as number 1. And you're right. Like, when you're number 1 in a region, you got to feel pretty good at that point. You played Marymount on Friday, and you beat them by 18.
Yes.
And then the matchup I was looking forward to was John Carroll. I've been really big on them. They've been inconsistent all year, but pure talent wise, holy crap, that Ciccone guy and Frazier. And I feel like before those guys are done, they're going to win the national championship. What was your take on John Carroll's talent level in that game?
I thought it was terrific. So I told my athletic director and my wife after the game, I thought that was, of the 8, I think we've been in the tournament now 7 times in my 11 years, that was the best team we've beaten in the tournament. No disrespect to any other games, but it was more of a compliment to John Carroll. I think that, I think for them, okay, they had to play us at home. We have typically, for viewers that maybe don't follow us as much, we typically have been a team that, it's hard to grow up in Syracuse and not play 2-3 zone. So we've always played a little bit of zone. Okay. This particular group of kids that I've had the last 2 years, we've been so athletic and long, we haven't had to play our zone, but we do practice it every day. And when I saw John Carroll on film and then also in person on Friday, I thought we could have won the game playing man, but I thought they would have gotten us in foul trouble. And right now, our younger guys are not playing as well off the bench. And I thought it helped us to play a shorter bench and stay out of foul trouble. And a lot of the OAC, we run into, I told you off air, we've been shipped out and played the OAC teams quite a bit. And a lot of the teams in the OAC play a lot alike. None of them play a ton of zone. They run ball screen offense, high hedge pick and roll. And the one thing that I thought could have been good for us is the shots you get against zone are just a little different because you're standing around a little bit. I
Yeah.
thought it might have thrown him off guards. And Zero, the point guard Chacon, he is as advertised. Now I'm not
He's
trading
good.
my guy because my
Yeah.
guy's really good,
Right.
but he is so quick, Bob. And not only is he quick, he's got a great pull-up game. And he's only a sophomore, and
Right.
for a sophomore, he makes some pretty darn good decisions in there, you know.
Yeah.
And they're big on the perimeter, and their bigs really, really good on the offensive board. So I just thought, you know, we were fortunate that that was a big part of the game was the zone. It really was. But
Right.
I think they're really good. To your point, I could see them making a Final Four, winning a championship, no
Yeah.
question about it. I also thought the fact that they were, you know, it was their first year all playing together. I think it seemed like, and they were all sophomores, and I've got an older team. I thought that also worked in our
Yeah,
favor.
I agree. As the game played out, you guys definitely looked like the more veteran team. In that game, you got down in the first. I think you went down like 10 points, but by the time halftime came, you were up 3. You had a 13-point swing, which I thought that the way the half ended, I thought was huge. And then, I mean, I was really surprised. You guys really controlled the second half. You know, you were up, I don't know, did you get up 15 at some point, right? It was
17,
17.
5 minutes in the second half. Yeah.
They
Well,
they yeah,
they had trouble offensively. You know, they had trouble offensively against the zone. We were at home, and again, we played man the first 5 minutes when we were down, and actually our man defense was not bad. We just couldn't score. Again, for us to play somebody with 2, 6, 7, 6, 7, 6, 8 guy in there, and then the length of their guards, we just hadn't seen that
right.
since we have an annual scrimmage against U of R. We hadn't seen that since then, so there was going to be a little bit of a feeling out process and getting used to that. But I also thought we would adjust, and we're really difficult to stop in transition. So I thought if we
Yeah.
could just get some stops, the one thing about the zone is it gives you great opportunities to run if you can recover long rebounds.
Right. And I thought you really did make them take shots that probably aren't their top choice. They were 2 of 19 from 3, and the knock on them has been, can they shoot it well consistently? They've had games where they've shot it, but they've also had some games like this where they didn't. 2 of 19. I thought the stat that jumped out for me is they had 3 assists to 12 turnovers. And you'd think that against a zone, if you were really clicking, you know, pass, jump shot, basket, that's an assist. 3 assists to 12 turnovers. To me, that's eye-popping that they had trouble with your zone. And so Kuda, you held them to 61 points, and that's a pretty explosive group of kids right there. You had to be thrilled to hold them to 61.
They can score. I mean, they're really good. I mean, I think we caught them on a night where maybe, you know, this is a second. The other thing too about the decision to play them zone was second night of a back-to-back. Albertus, that game was an up and down game, 91-81.
Right.
And
right.
they had to play their guys a lot of minutes, as did we the first night. And I just thought, maybe we hang around. Maybe the fourth quarter of the game, maybe the shots don't go in. I wasn't expecting them to go 2 for 19, but I just thought it certainly gave us a better opportunity to win than to play man to man. I was really worried about Chacon. I mean, he was not to discredit their other players, but he is the real deal. I'll be shocked if that young man's not an All-American by the time he's done.
I completely agree. Before we jump into the current or the weekend coming up, I want to ask about your league, the SUNYAC. It's a good league, and I didn't know a ton about it until I got to know and became good friends with the late Mike Frelich, aka that D3 guy, and he used to kind of make me watch SUNYAC games and understand who was who, and you know, miss Mike every day, but it's a great league, and it's a fun league to follow. You've won it six times in 11 years. Is that correct? Does that sound right? 6 and 11.
Yeah.
Pretty impressive. If you would talk a little bit about your league. There's a lot of people that'll tune in that don't know about it.
Well, we'll get back to the recruiting part of it. So one unique thing about our league is that obviously we all fall under the State University of New York umbrella. So, you know, give or take $1,000, all of us cost the same amount of money. So a big part of Division III recruiting is admissions financial aid, right?
Yep.
So there's a couple of the schools that have slightly, you know, different admission standards, but for the most part, the admissions and financial aid is somewhat similar at all of our institutions. So I always tell people one of the reasons I really enjoy coaching in our league is because of the diversity of the student athlete that we can recruit here. It's not necessarily just racial diversity, but the socioeconomic component and the type of students that we can attract. So I went to the University of Rochester. I've got, some kids on my team that, over the years that could have gotten into the University of Rochester, or a school like that, a highly selective academic school, but they couldn't afford the bill to go there, and they were like, maybe a middle class income where those kids, it's a little harder for them to get aided. But then we also have the first generation college student on our campus that maybe is a little bit lower academically, that we have the programs available to help those students, have an opportunity to get a college degree and play a high level college athletics. So that's probably, one of the things that I would tell the viewers is unique to our league is, when we recruit against each other, it's kind of neat. It's almost like a scholarship level where you're really selling your program because, the admissions and financial aid stuff is pretty similar at all of our places. The basketball, you probably would know this more than me, but I will tell you this: in the last 12 years in our league, 7 of the teams have won the conference tournament. 7 different teams.
That's cool.
So that, I think, is a pretty unique part of our league as well. I would wonder, I'm sure there's an example, but there can't be many of leagues where you've got 7 out of the 10 schools that have had an opportunity to win the league. I can speak to parity or mediocrity. I know that, but I can tell you this: we've had a couple, and it's not actually even us, Brockport in our league. They had a really unfortunate thing. Their best team that I thought could have made some noise and get to an Elite Eight Final Four. They had a great team my 3rd year here back in, I think, 2014, where they had an unbelievable player, this kid by the name of John Ivey. He tore his ACL in our gym the last Tuesday of the regular season. And they still had a really good team, but I thought that team would have had a chance to make a run. And then the COVID year, Brockport was incredible too. And then the tournament gets canceled and they were hosting the Sweet 16. And for our league, Bob, for our league, it's hard to get these home games in the tournament. And
really hard.
The second weekend to get those things are gold. You know what I mean? So those are some unique things to our league. I think it's a great league. We play a double round robin. And because of that, you play Friday night 7:30 and then Saturday afternoon 4:00.
Wow.
So travel is unique in our league, where you travel 2 hours in between games and turn around and play less than 24 hours later. So I think that kind of determines results sometimes too. So those are 3 or 4 snippets about the league that I think are very unique.
And just tell everyone, like Oswego, New York, if you haven't, if you're not familiar, I mean, you guys are way the hell up there, Jason. Like you're sitting on Lake Ontario, aren't you?
Well, yeah. Well, you're down in Dallas, Bob. I mean, everything's way up there, isn't it? I mean,
but you're really up there. You might as well be in Canada.
All right. We're in central New York, right outside Syracuse, where I grew up. I will tell you, okay, to your point, if you didn't grow up here like I did, the weather can be, I don't know, comparable to Siberia sometimes. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, but our campus is literally the backside of our campus. Our freshman dorms overlook Lake Ontario.
Right.
150 steps. So, in the spring and summer, it's actually a really beautiful campus.
I'm sure it is.
And it's a great college town. And we're 25 minutes north of the Syracuse airport. Actually, my wife and I and our kids live in Syracuse.
That's cool.
I commute up to school here every day. So we're a suburb of Syracuse, New York. And 8,000 students. It's I think it's a really good place to recruit to.
And staying with the geography theme, the first thing I always do when the bracket comes out is I start to look at the possible sectional hosts. And I get out the NCAA calculator, and sure enough, old Oswego State is 499 miles to Ashland, Virginia.
You saw that.
499 is the first thing.
You do your homework. My AD and I have been laughing over the last 24 hours about that.
Yeah, 499. I was like, every single matchup leads to Ashland, Virginia. So that's where you're heading this weekend, obviously, and you get the big boys the Friday night. So you just got to jump right into it. The defending national champs. I can't remember what their home winning streak is but it's crazy.
66, it's either 64 or 66.
So it's in the 60s. We know it's in the mid 60s, high
I think, and
60s.
I think it's the longest home winning streak at any level in the country in the history of basketball. Somebody told me today. Is
It's
that accurate?
crazy. I think it's right. I think that's what Ryan Scott said. And so here's my take on this. If this was a neutral court game, like I don't think Randolph-Macon is quite where they were a year ago, although they very much deserve to be number one. But they're without Buzz Anthony, there's still a missing piece there. If this was a neutral court game, I think I'd be all in on like this can go either way. Because it's at their place with their crazy streak, I gotta say they're the favorite.
Oh, of course.
Which doesn't matter. But what's your take on this? Is a unique opportunity for your kids to go into a gym like this. This is a cool, fun thing. Like, what's your take on this?
Well, I just think, okay, like I try to put myself in the player's shoes, right? Like I'd be like, okay, like first of all, you got to embrace the whole thing, right? I think this is the best team that we've had here. Okay, no disrespect
Absolutely.
to some other teams, but just in terms of our athleticism and our way to play different ways. And I also think that it's so important when you go and play somebody that has, you know, had the success that they've had, for our guys to understand, well, we've had a lot of success too. I think there's got to be a level that you remind them, okay, like we've won 23 games in a row
Yeah.
too. Maybe it's not
Right.
against quite the same level of competition, but I firmly believe, and Josh is a good friend of mine, you know, to win any game in this tournament, you're not going to back it. You have to outplay people. So
Right.
I just told our guys, it was our first practice tonight. We just got out before I got on with you. And I think the first thing is like having belief in yourself and in the team and in our system, the way we do things. And I think the second thing is like you got to embrace this time of year. Like we've been here 4 times in 7 years, haven't advanced past this round. I could tell you this, I've never been to Randolph-Macon before, but we have played at Augustana. We've played at Marietta. And I don't know if you can rank which place is tougher, but all 3 of them are probably going to be, our guys we've been at these places. So,
Absolutely.
you know, I think you got to embrace that stuff. That's my point. And then you got to go play well, you know, and, you know, you got to go play well. And obviously there's things that they do exceptionally well, especially on the defensive end.
Yeah.
And, you know, we've got to put in something, that a game plan that doesn't paralyze our guys where we do too much, but we got to go and play and play to our strengths. And, you know, it's not a game where I'm going to treat this like, you know, we got to do 9 million different things. I think we got to do what we do and go down there, play. And if that's not good enough, they're going to have to play well to beat us. And,
Right.
you know, we'll go from there, you know?
Well, I think it's the right fit to have a guy that grew up in Syracuse be the guy that has to attack this Randolph-Macon defense, whatever Josh wants to call it. I don't know if he likes the word zone or he hates the word, but like you're the right guy for the job here, aren't you, Jason?
I don't know about that. It has to be at 9 o'clock on Friday night. I might have my head between my legs. I don't know, but I will tell you this: we will, our team, and I think, you know, no matter what coach would coach in this type of game, it said like we're going to go down and compete, and we'll be excited and be ready. And again, I think being in this spot 4 times in 7 years, I think that in and of itself is an advantage, because our guys have, you know, they got a chip on their shoulder too. We haven't knocked this door down yet, you know,
Right.
and I'm excited because now our guys, like 4 years ago, it was like we went and it was like whoever played us the first time we made it. I mean, they were at a decided advantage because I think we were just happy to be there. And
Yeah.
now it's like we're chopping wood here and we want to break through. I don't know if it'll be this year. Obviously, I think we're an underdog going in. That's not a big surprise, but I think the more times you get in these situations and keep chopping wood, eventually you kind of break through.
Yeah, and the cool thing is you find a way in that game, you know, Johns Hopkins versus Whitewater. Those are both great teams. Like Whitewater won the conference tournament in the WIAC, the best league, and Hopkins is
Yep.
a great team. We know that.
Yes.
But Oswego State neutral court versus one of those two. Now you're feeling like let's do this, you know. And so I guess the other thought I have is I've been to so many road Illinois Wesleyan tournament games and where they've been playing like the number 1 team in the country, and sometimes those home number 1 teams have a lot of pressure on them at home, and all of a sudden you get up 8-2 and funny things start happening. So like it doesn't mean it's easier because you're playing at home. In fact, I've seen it go the other way sometimes, so just, when you're up 8-2, just remember I said this. How about that?
Okay. If we're up 8-2, I would be happy. If we're even up in the game, I'd be happy. But I will remember you.
Just a couple more things before I let you go. I know you're super busy. You just had practice. I want to talk about your team real quick. You have a loaded group. You're so talented, and it's really fun to watch your guys play. Just let me bring up a couple guys here. Jeremiah Sparks, he's a 6'3" junior guard, 17.6 rebounds, 3 assists, and he shoots the three at 38%. Pretty good numbers there. If you would talk about Jeremiah Sparks.
When Jeremiah came here pre-COVID, he was an athlete who was a superior athlete who was, trying to become a better basketball player. And now the best compliment I can give Jeremiah is he's a basketball player who's incredibly athletic. So he has added an element to his game every year he's been here. He's a Swiss Army knife, if you will, can defend and play all 5 positions with the way we play. And those guys, especially at our level, are invaluable, Bob. You know that. It's like, and I watched Josh's team play for the first time on film the last couple of days. They're guys that they're playing with are, a lot of them are 6'3", 6'4".
Yeah.
They can do a lot of switching, and they're so big and strong. And Jeremiah looks to me like a lot of the guys that Josh has on his team from the standpoint of they can do a lot of different things, play a lot of positions, and defend a lot of different people. So he's just been great. And you know what, Bob, and coaches will say this, but I truly believe this. Jeremiah is he's a coach's dream. I can leave the locker room and really trust that the right things are being reinforced when I'm not there. And there's nobody that's put more time into this than him. And it's a proud papa moment to watch these guys go from freshman year through COVID and now into this thing. And I've got him for another year after this with his COVID year. And he's been just an absolute joy to watch his development.
Yeah, he's a great player. He's fun to watch. Another guy, is it Aki? Is that
Aki Anderson?
Aki Anderson. So tell me about Aki Anderson. 12 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists. I noticed that so many of your guys share the ball. Like assist totals of 3, 3, 4. That's a sign of there's a lot of assists going on. Aki Anderson, 6'0", sophomore guard. If you'll talk about him, please.
Well, I got to tell you about his recruiting story first. So,
please do.
So COVID was like, for a lot of programs, it's like, it was hard for them to recruit during COVID. We had, and I could sit here and take credit for the group we had, but we really had some good fortune during COVID. And it sounds like, how does that even make sense? But Aki was a great story. I got his high school coach and I played against each other in the UAA. His high school coach, Nick Thomas, was a great guard at NYU. And actually my senior year at U of R, back then the tournament was regional, so that they ranked within regions to get in.
Right.
And Nick Thomas banked in a foul shot in double overtime to beat us in the Palestra in Rochester. And I thought we were done. And they swept us. And I said, well, we're never going to be able to pass them in the rankings. And I thought we were done. And he banked in that shot. And we kept in touch when he became a high school coach in New York, basically because of that shot, me busting his chops. And I always kept telling him, you owe me, you owe me, you owe me. So COVID goes. Aki's got a scholarship to a school down in New York City, NYIT, a Division II school. They decide during COVID to shut down athletics for at least 2 years. So this is July 20th, 21st. And Aki's, he's an exceptional student, like just under a 4.0. Nick calls me and he says, okay, you've been telling me for umpteen years, I owe you. Well, today's your lucky day. I got this kid. He was a state B class player of the year. He's a little undersized, but he's literally got no place to go.
Wow.
Can you get him in? We got rolling admissions. I have him up, and it's late July. So by the time we get everything submitted with his app and all that stuff, it's August 1, and the timing worked out. And he's been unbelievable. He's had the ball in his hands for 2 straight years, and his stats maybe look pedestrian, but if anybody takes the time to watch him play and the poise he plays with, when the ball is in his hands, we are certainly at our best.
Yeah, he's a stud. Like, he's fun to watch. I don't think his stats look. I'm 12, 4, and 4. Give me that from a guard all day long.
Yeah.
Devin Green is a 6'3" senior guard. Again, another kind of stat stuffer. 14 points, 7 rebounds, 3 assists, and get this. I don't know if you know this, Coach. He shoots the three at 46%, 0.461. Can you talk about Devin Green?
I know he shows 46, shoots 46.1. I've been watching for 2 years. He finished last year third in the country, and with 46, he's got to be right up there again this year. But Devin and Jeremiah are so important for us, Bob, because we're not terribly tall. Okay,
Right.
we're playing undersized basketball, but those two guys from the guard position, they're the two best guard rebounders that I've seen at our level. So
Yeah.
they both average, I think, 7 a game,
Yep.
and they have long arms, and more important than that, they've got a nose for the ball. They stick their nose in a crowd and they can leap, and they get their hands on so many balls, and they're so quick. And Devin's just been, again, he can guard on the perimeter. We can put him on, some post guys, and he can front and do that type of thing. But he does a lot of different things. And you mentioned our assist totals. That's because Key, Devin, and Jeremiah can all play the point for us. So when we
Right.
get a rebound, we don't have to find an outlet man, and that's contributed to our pace of play where we're able to get the ball up the court, and that's really where we're at our best.
Huge advantage to have that many guys that can handle it. Cartier Bowman, 11.7 rebounds, another guy that rebounds it well. Now he brings you some size here. So
Yes.
6'6" junior forward. He can do a little bit of everything. He plays with his back to the basket. He can face, he can handle it. He does good things for it, and he's really necessary because you do need a little size. Talk about Cartier Bowman, if you would.
So we got him late in the process this year. I thought with the team we had coming back, it would have been hard to have a freshman come in with a team with high expectations that played the post spot. So he was a small forward at St. Rose, a Division II school in New York. He went into the portal. I had a connection that helped us get in with him. He wanted to continue to play at the scholarship level. He had something fall through late in the process. Exceptional student. He got a great financial aid package here because he got a top academic award, and we got him here, and he's just been an unbelievable person. He's just scratching the surface. So, he's a guard at that level. Here, we transformed him into something where his best advantage is having guard skills at the 5 spot for
Yeah,
us.
yeah.
And he's just, in this last 3 weeks, we've seen him take a big leap, just with his role and the things that he's able to do for us. And a lot of the transfers we've had, I see the biggest jump come from year 1 to year 2. And I think, he's played well for us in this tournament, but, going into next year, his senior year, I think you're going to see him play at a all league, all region caliber level. So he's a big piece to what we're doing.
Yeah, he'll be important Friday night as well. I mean, they have some size, and he's going to have
Yes.
to play well. And then one final guy. There's nothing statistically here that jumps out, but when I've watched your team, I really like this Jamal Achille character. 7 points, 5 rebounds. He seems to just do a lot of really great things that help you win games. Can you talk about Jamal Achille?
Sure. He's the consummate, what people like to call, glue guy. I just call him, he's a winning player. So you could look at some games this year against, really good teams where he's scored for us in the 20s. He's had double doubles. Last year in the tournament, he had, I think, 3 straight double doubles in our games in the NCAA tournament down at Swarthmore and then out at Marietta. But he can play inside, outside. He's developed a little bit of a 3-point shot this year, which has been great.
Yeah.
Jamal's probably given up the most out of our starting 5 in terms of his numbers. But I was happy to see this year our coaches in our league, they recognized him as an all-conference player this year. And I think it speaks to the
Yeah, that's
balance.
huge.
You have somebody that averages 7 points a game, make an all-conference team, but he's certainly deserving. So Jamal's been with me, for 3 years. Started for 3 years. He's a great player, and we got him back for his COVID year next year too. He's going to get a graduate degree, so I'm excited about that.
Yeah, he's a really good player, and I am glad that a guy like that gets all conference, because when you watch the games, it's clear that he's one of your most valuable players.
Yes.
Just a couple more things I wanted to ask you just about Division III in general. I always like talking to the D3 guys. You played
Yep.
at a D3. In fact, you didn't start at a D3. You started at Division I Lafayette, right? And you transferred to Rochester. You finished at Rochester. You've coached at different D3s, and some non D3s, I believe. But
Yes.
at heart, you're one of these guys. We can put you in the
Absolutely.
bucket of D3. What there's this YD3 hashtag, and people, like me and Dave McHugh and Pat. There's a bunch of us that just do this stuff because we love Division III. There's something to this, right? Why do you love Division III?
I love it because I feel a very unique connection with the players. Um, I love it because of my experience at the University of Rochester. I had a college coach that was just, aside from my own parents, was just an impactful person in my life. And listen, my uncle was a Division I coach. I grew up more around Division I. I think there's some really good things about the Patriot League and Ivy League
Yeah,
that are similar to Division III,
absolutely.
but it's still a little different at that level. I listened to Coach Fulkertsy talk a few weeks ago, and it just is a little bit more different, the philosophy at that level, even at those highly selective schools in the Ivy and Patriot League, than what we get at Division III. And the connection that I'm speaking to, Bob, is just, the when kids come through our programs and your relationship morphs from where you are holding them accountable in a certain way when they're a young adult, and then the connection you build where then they come back or stay in touch with you, and then they get to be 30 and 40 years old, and they're doing things that, with parenting and job and successfulness, and that stuff is irreplaceable, in terms of my experience. And it's not that you can't have that at other levels. I just think it's probably a little bit more prevalent, um, in the Division III model, so those are some meaningful things to me. I also enjoy, like we spoke off air, like I love to golf. I without having ever coached at Division I, I would guess the balance of being able to have, the type of family life I want,
Yeah.
and to be able to do things like golfing 70-75 times during the off season.
Right.
I don't know from experience, but I would guess that might be a little more challenging at different levels. So, those are some things I love about Division III.
That's very well said. And I think we need to find footage of Coach Flakertzy playing in that Grinnell system. Can we get some footage of him like trapping guys and shooting a million threes? I think that would be gold if it exists somewhere. Have you ever seen any footage of Coach Flakertzy at Grinnell?
I haven't, but I would guess the coach Flo is a great shooter.
I
That would be my best guess.
I would guess the same. Yeah, I'm gonna look for that. I that's gonna be my goal because I think we'd enjoy that.
I'll tell you this, you can easily find footage or pictures of me playing at Rochester, because back then I wanted to put on weight so bad and get stronger, and my body wouldn't lend itself to that. And then of course you get in your
Right.
40s like I am now, and my suits fit differently every year, and the weight fluctuates a little bit more during marriage and child
That's how it
raising.
goes. Yeah, unfortunately, I still remember my freshman year at Illinois Wesleyan being 6'3", 145, and trying to like just do anything I could to gain about 20 pounds before I became a
Now
sophomore.
you can't keep it off, right?
And now it just doesn't work the same way, Coach.
Not fair, is it? It's
It's
not
it's
fair.
it's not fair. This has been awesome. I'm really excited for you guys. 23 in a row. You got a awesome opportunity. You're going to go to Ashland, Virginia, and play the #1 team in the country on their floor. It's kind of what it's all about. I hope you guys enjoy. I hope you enjoy the ride. I talked about this earlier with Coach Erickson. Like, you got to enjoy this whole thing because it's hard to get here. You know that you've been here, but it's hard to get here, right?
Yeah, and Bob, I gotta ask you, like, can you imagine being like Jim Boeheim or Roy Williams or one of these, guys where like you get to the Sweet 16 and that's not good enough?
Yeah,
Like
that's
that's what
hard
I
to.
can't wrap my brain around. I'm
Yeah,
like, and listen, like I want to get past this round as much as anybody, but the perspective that you're able to keep in Division II, that was the biggest eye opener. Like, what did you learn from coaching in the Sweet 16 for the first time? Like, the number one thing I learned is that I can't believe there's teams out there that go and win 3 more games after that.
Yeah.
Because I think what we've accomplished to this point, just winning 2 games,
Right. It's hard.
These teams are good. Like Marymount and John Carroll. I mean, they were unbelievable teams.
Everyone's good. Yep.
And somebody's going to go and win 4 more of these things. I'm like, this is crazy.
Yeah, it is. It's a fun time of year, and to appreciate what you've accomplished is, I think, sometimes these things just go by so fast, and it's not till like, August that you're sitting back thinking that was really cool. Make sure your guys enjoy the ride, because it's fun stuff. I want to make sure we get any last comments from you, Jason. This has been awesome. I appreciate it. I feel like we could probably do this once a week, and it'd probably be a lot of fun for both of us. Close us out if you would. You've got some D3 fans, you got Oswego State fans, SUNYAC fans. Where do you want to leave everyone on the QCast here on season 3, episode 28?
Well, first off, want to thank you. I'm glad we've finally connected, and I genuinely enjoy a lot of your takes on Division III basketball. Again, your candidness, and we're not on ESPN every night, so you've got to follow people like you to learn about different regions of the country. Our league isn't the UAA, so we seldom play out of region. So you've got to, look at people like yourself and that are around different areas of the country in order to get, not only data, but information about things that go on. And I enjoy, just like anybody, when I'm not coaching, I'm a fan of this whole thing. So I appreciate everything you do. Love this show. And, the other thing is, like, I don't know a lot of the other coaches from the different regions of the country. So when there's these interviews, it's nice to listen and get different perspectives on how people run their program and what they find to be valuable within their experience of coaching at our level, and bringing that to us. I really appreciate that, Bob.
Well, I appreciate it, and that's always great for me to hear, is like, if someone's picking up something from a peer coach that they don't even know from this little show, that's cool. Also, like, if there's some kid that wants to be a coach out there that's a senior or grad student that's listening to some of this stuff, and it helps that person become a coach, to me, that's really cool too. I wish you luck Friday. I think you guys can compete. I truly believe that with the talent you have on the floor, your experience, as well as you rebound it, as well as you pass it, I think you guys have a good chance Friday. It's going to be tough as heck, but I'm rooting for you guys to play great. And Jason, Leone, I can't thank you enough for spending time on the QCast with you. Good luck to you guys the rest of the way. Okay,
Bob, thanks for everything. I appreciate it. Stay in touch.
Thank you.